My name is Mitchell Hora. I'm a seventh generation Iowa farmer, and we're on my family's farm near Washington, Iowa. So it's Washington County, and we farm about 700 acres. We farm corn, soybeans, and cereal rye. We've also farmed with winter wheat, with barley, and with mustard. So really trying to find a bunch of different crops that we can use on our farm. On our farm, conservation and soil health is really crucial. We've farmed in this county for 150 years. So to farm for 150 years or to farm for another 150 years, we have to really protect our soils. We use things like no-till and cover crops like you see behind me to really protect and build up our soils. We've been utilizing no-till for more than 40 years. Now this is the 6th year that we've had cover crops on our farm. And with the use of these practices, we're finding that we can improve our profitability, number one, improve our economic resiliency, continue to improve our yields, but we can do it more in nature's image. We don't need as much synthetic fertilizer. We don't need as much pesticides. We don't need as much diesel fuel. We don't need as big of tractors. So because of our practices, it makes it a lot easier. We're also finding that we can now store carbon and pull it from the atmosphere and store it in the soil. We can improve our impact on water quality. We can improve our impact on flooding and mitigating flooding because we can infiltrate water. And we're finding now that we can actually improve the nutrient quality of the food that we're producing coming off of our farm. Through sustainable ag practices, farmers are better able to really hone in on farming with Mother Nature and not against her, and ensure that farmers are capturing the economic value for the products that they're producing. There's a lot more transparency coming to agriculture. Everyone's wanting to know more about where their food comes from and how it's produced. We want to show that as Iowa farmers, we're producing food sustainably and being more transparent as to how we do things on the farm. Cover crops are really unique in that a cover crop is there for the purpose only to protect the soil and to live while we're not growing a corn or a soybean crop. So we grow them in Iowa over the winter time. So now it's April, we planted our corn into this cover crop, and now about 5 days after planting, we'll come through and we'll kill the cover crop with a herbicide. And with these herbicides, we're finding that we can get a really easy kill on the cover crop. It's just a grass. Grasses are really easy to kill. But because of all this residue and all this material that's on the soil, the weeds really can't grow through. The weeds really can't grow through all this material. So we find that we can reduce our other herbicides later in the year. On our soybeans, we're planting soybeans today. We already planted some in the middle of April, and we won't terminate our cover crop until it's about 5 foot tall. We'll let the soybeans be about knee high, and we won't terminate that cover crop until really late in the year. A grass cover crop like cereal rye grows really well with a legume crop like soybeans. They've kind of are an opposites attract type of a thing, so they'll grow together in synergy with each other, and then we can terminate that cover crop weeks and weeks later to really maximize the benefits and ensure that we're getting the most bang for our buck, because cover crops cost a lot of money and we need to make sure that we get the real benefit for using those cover crops. So this field, we actually just planted the corn just a couple days ago, and that's where there's strips going through the field. That's where the actual corn is planted. All of this green stuff here is a cover crop. This is cereal rye. It's the most common cover crop used in Iowa. It's just a grass cover crop that's really winter hardy. We planted it last fall, and it's really great at protecting for soil health and helping to improve water quality, but it does a really great job of building up our soils and really creating healthy soils that support our water quality. When you look at soil, you want it to look like cottage cheese. And what's awesome about this soil is all of those little chunks, those are called aggregates, and they look just like cottage cheese. That's exactly what you want it to look like. This soil is really awesome. And we've been working to build this up for the last multiple years, but this is picture perfect of what you want your soil to look like, to have good aggregation, hold together, and stop against erosion. One of the key benefits with cover crops is that you can improve your water infiltration. In Iowa, we get about 35 inches of rainfall per year. Most of that rainfall comes in the springtime, in April and May. And at that time of the year, our corn doesn't really need a whole lot of rain. But we want to get that water in the soil and hold on to it so that we don't cause flooding and have issues down the river. As we've improved our water infiltration with cover crops, we're finding that we can now really hold a lot of water. Last year, we did some testing and we found that we can infiltrate 4 inches of rainfall in less than 5 minutes. When we get 1 inch of rain, we can actually infiltrate that inch of rainfall in less than 6 seconds. We can infiltrate the second inch of rain in 23 seconds, the third inch of rain in a little over a minute, the fourth inch of rain in about 2.5 minutes. Really amazing as we want to reduce flooding, reduce issues with too much rainfall at the wrong time of year. We can utilize this improved soil structure, all these wormholes and stuff. That's a gigantic wormhole there, almost the size of my pinky finger, that all that water can now really infiltrate right down through all these pores, all these holes, and work right down through this soil because we have this cottage cheese structure, exactly what you want so that that water can move in the soil. Yeah, this corn seed was planted here just a couple days ago, and it's already starting to sprout because it's got good moisture, it's got good temperature, really good conditions down in that soil. Here's a little worm. But that's a little baby one. Yeah, these wormholes are just huge too. And then there's a little baby worm coming out of it. So we want to have bacteria and fungus both in the soil and a lot of our microbial communities in balance with each other. And now we're seeing that we can improve these microbial communities. We can actually build up our soil fungal communities and be able to create more of that balance in the system. All the different microbes have their own job, so we need all of them working together to really help us to be more sustainable. Those wormholes create channels that the roots can easily grow down and live through, and they can easily dig down really deep into the soil to get moisture when we get dry later in the year. This wormhole is full of these roots, and this root has worked itself right down through the wormhole, and it's plastered itself all the way around the edges of the wormhole as well. The worm has actually pulled down a lot of residue down into the soil, and the sidewalls of those worm channels are full of bacteria. So these roots are utilizing all that good bacteria, utilizing that channel. They have ample moisture and oxygen getting down to those roots, and these microbes and these worms are helping us to bury all this residue and really store a lot of carbon down in our soils. Farmers use it because it gives a lot of coverage. It's got really nice roots, and they go down even deeper than this versus what I pulled out of the ground. But really great at building up our structure, holding on to all that dirt, keeping our soil here where we want it. Farmers in Iowa will also use lots of other cover crops too, like wheat, barley, hairy vetch. There's lots of different clovers that we can use as well. We use these big old tillage radishes, which really break up compaction. There's dozens and dozens of options for cover crop species. A farmer just has to approach using cover crops with an understanding of what is their goal. And if your goal is to graze cattle, or your goal is to protect water quality, or your goal is to pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere, there's a cover crop for that. And as farmers are using cover crops, they need to just better understand what's the goal and then make a decision to go and achieve that goal. So this is a different type of cover crop. It's called rapeseed, and it's a brassica. So it's really good for cattle feed because of these nice big leaves. Kind of like a salad. You can make a salad out of this type of stuff. But we've been trying to use a bunch of different types of cover crops because more diversity stimulates more diverse microbes. So we want to get as many different things as we can. Last year we planted like 10 different species of cover crops out here. Now we're in the spring. A lot of cover crops don't survive our winters here in Iowa, but this rapeseed did, and all of this rye here behind me did. There's some hairy vetch right here. There's a couple different types of rye out here as well. There's cereal rye and annual rye. There's some wheat out here. So a bunch of different types of cover crops. Trying to get as much as we can, but you can see all the yellow flowers from this rapeseed. And we'll terminate it right along with the rest of the cover crop later on. This is our corn planter, and we're at the back of it right now. It's folded up and it's put away in the shed. But when this planter goes through, it's being pulled by a tractor and it's going this way through the field. These trash rippers go through the field and they spin to be able to move the cover crop and move the residue out of the way. So these go through and they just pull the cover crop off to the side. You can see it got some of the cover crop right here. So it moves it off to the side, and then back behind we have a little pizza cutter. It's a disc opener that just opens the furrow and it drops the seed right in the back. And then on the back we have little, after we plant through, the seed gets dropped down right inside of here. And then at the back, these discs help to move the dirt back in, and this wheel goes down over the top and it presses it all down in and makes that seed a nice little bed that it can grow out of, where it has good connection with the soil and it has moisture down in there too. So all the seed comes from up in these big tanks. The seed is stored in the big tanks, and it gets blown with a vacuum down to the row getter. So the fertilizer runs through this little tube and it comes right out in the bottom, and we're putting fertilizer right on the seed, right where it needs it. And then these discs move the dirt back in, and this wheel presses the dirt down to have everything nice and closed up and sealed. Out planting soybeans here today, and we're drilling them in, and we're drilling these soybeans into a cover crop. Right now we're drilling on the end rows, so still driving by hand here now, but all of our equipment is really rigged up with a lot of technology in it. So we have GPS, we have all the monitors and equipment stuff, we have sensors that are gathering information about the cover crop out ahead of us. Tons of really, really cool equipment that we're able to use, and new technology that we can utilize here on the farm. There's new stuff happening all the time. So these are soybeans that we're drilling in, and drilling these soybeans into a cover crop. So that's why it's all green. And we are actually going to harvest this cover crop as a relay crop. So we're actually going to harvest 2 crops on the acre this year. So we'll have the cereal rye will harvest in July, and then the soybeans will harvest this fall in October. So 2 crops on the same acre, really helping to build soil health and our profitability. So when we're setting up this GPS, I can actually go into my monitor and I can select if I want to go perfectly north and south, perfectly east and west, or go on an angle, and you can actually choose any type of directional heading that you want. I'm wanting to go perfectly north and south right now. So on my monitor, I can select which different setting I want to use, and it pulls in the lines perfectly for me. Now, as I'm going to go and actually plant this line, I can just press a button on my monitor, that's going to bring me on this line that's highlighted red. Now I'm locked in on my monitor. I can just press forward and my tractor will actually steer for me and get me on the line so that I can drive perfectly straight. Precision agriculture tools to help us to really be efficient, because I don't want to overlap. I don't want to plant soybeans where I already planted soybeans. So I use the GPS to be able to perfectly plant them right in line with the others. The map is already in here. So we already set the boundary of the field previously, and all I'm doing now is I'm just going off of the line, so it doesn't necessarily know exactly where the end of the field is. At the end of the field, I have to stop, lift it out of the ground here. When I get to the line, I can lift it up. We'll go down to the next one. All I gotta do is click to engage and it'll straighten me out. Or when I get up to where I haven't planted beans yet, we'll plant right into it. Now we go back and forth until we're done.